Hello, everybody. It's James here, story time with Dutch Mantell, episode 14. And before we get to the main thing, I actually want to make an announcement, and I'm sure people have seen on the YouTube channel on WSI, that Dutch Mantell has now got his own YouTube channel, Story Time with Dutch Mantell. And there'll be links in this podcast and every single video we do, and all the classic Dutch stuff will be there. All the new Dutch stuff will be there. It will be all Dutch all the time, as many people have requested. The next thing is book plugs, of course. And whenever I say book plugs, it sounds like butt plugs, but plugs for the books. I'm sorry, Dutch.
What?
The
Butt
world
plugs for sale.
That contravenes YouTube's terms and services, I'm quite sure. But here we go. The World According to Dutch. Tales from a Dirt Road. Both fine tomes by Dutch Mantell himself, and my books, Owen, Hart, King of Pranks, and The Rock as well, the People's Champion. Is the website up yet, Dutch?
It is up, but it's not finished. So it's a work in progress, but it is up. And it's dirtydutchmantell.com, and you can access me there. And I'm adding this and this. I'm rebuilding it. Is what I'm doing. It only took me 5 years, but I'm getting to it. So let me say something right now while we're at the top of the show. Mm-hmm. We're doing a new show. I am with Vice, and this is called The Territories. And it's really, they're doing it in conjunction with The Rock and Dwayne Johnson. And this is something they delve into, and a lot of new fans have heard about, but they didn't know how it was constructed or how it worked. And we'll just go into that. When I got into the business, it wasn't called companies, or it was called territories. And every area of the United States, especially along the East Coast, had a wrestling territory associated with it. Like Florida was Florida Championship Wrestling, and they just worked in Florida. And then Georgia Championship Wrestling, they just ran the cities in Georgia. Then you had Mid-Atlantic, which took into both Carolinas and Virginia. And then, of course, you had WWF up in New York, and they covered Baltimore and New York City and Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and Boston. And that was a really high-paying, actually high-drawing territory because of the population. But a lot of people don't know about that. Then they had Tennessee, and they had Texas, and they had Kansas City and Oklahoma. But if you watch this show, and what I'm doing part of the narration on it, especially between segments. And I think it's going to be very enjoyable. I don't know when it's going to start on Vice, but we'll keep you tuned on that. But for those who have an historical view of the wrestling business, this is a way to get reassociated with it. But even if you go on Twitter, nobody talks about the territories except the old timers, and they talk about it. But if you don't know what that means, this series they'll kind of break it down for you. But it's old stories and how the territory started and what they were famous for, and this, that, and the other. And like I think they're doing Puerto Rico too, and they will cover the Bruiser Brody incident on that one. And then Tennessee, they talk about the old timers who ran around there. Interesting series. And what I like about it is, even if you're a newcomer as a fan, you kind of realize the history behind pro wrestling. And even if you're an old time fan, you'll hear some things that you've never heard before, and it's enjoyable. So look forward. It's on Vice, coming up, I think, in October, and I will keep you updated on that.
So you actually mentioned this to me, I think, after we stopped recording a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't get to ask you a ton of questions about it, but when do you start? Have you already started working on it? What are you going to have narration roles and on-screen roles? Are you a consultant? All those questions. But have you already done work for them so far?
Oh yeah. Well, I guess they call it the ins and outs between some segments, or the end of the show. I would say, like, don't miss Vice next week, and we're talking about Calgary, Alberta, the territory. But I actually have an on-screen part in that when they did Memphis, and the Memphis characters they have on there was me and Jerry Lawler, Jerry Jarrett, who owned the territory, Jeff Jarrett, who's Jerry's son, and Jimmy Hart. And we sit around a table and we talk. And of course, they take that back and they edit it while rolling footage in. And they have a lot of footage from Memphis that they don't have to rely on, say, WWE to supply it. They have and Jim Cornette probably had most of that footage anyway. And the thing about, and you may not even know this, the thing about the Memphis footage, nobody knows who owns that. A clear license to Memphis footage has not been determined, because like Channel 5 of Memphis, I think they claimed they owned it. And then Jerry Jarrett claimed he owned it, and he did, but at one point he sold it. And so nobody knows. It's actually a territory without an owner, a territory without a home.
Do you remember, shortly before he died, Corey Macklin, he was an announcer in the late 90s
yes,
for Memphis.
I know.
He claimed he owned it when he didn't, and then he sold the rights to some like High Spots or something for $20,000. Then before they could get the money back, he died.
Well, I don't know how he determined he owned it, but he could. Everybody else says it too. So Corey was well in his rights, I think, to say he owned it. But that is actually a story in and of itself, because I don't understand it, and I don't think anybody else understands it. I don't even think a court of law would understand it. But because I'm going way in the past. Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler got together and they sold their rights to the footage to this group out of Ohio. And I forgot this guy's name, but it was like $1 million. And this guy named Larry Burton, who is the super villain in this, and that wasn't even his name. Nobody ever really knew his name. But he sold it. He was the go-between guy, and it got all messed up. I don't know. The guy sued back. The guy who bought it, he sued Lawler and Jarrett, and I don't know if they made restitution or it got dropped or whatever. I never heard any more about it, so I might need to check into that and see how that ended up.
Yeah, we discussed that on 2 weeks ago or 1 week ago, I can't remember, on maybe the last show, the sale of USWA to Larry Burton / Larry Bertrand / whatever other names. A couple more things about Vice, the new Vice series. Were you a consultant on the series, and when and where did you film your parts?
I guess I was a consultant and a talent on it. And the only reason I did it this time, because Vice is in Canada, and they have a rule that you can't work on their shows. I mean, as a or whatever, you got to be Canadian, because they're very nationalistic there. People talk about the United States doing that, but Canada and Vice, it's a state-owned PBS channel. Really, basically, what it is. That's who's partners with Vice for this show. But I guess they kind of let up on their requirements. So I did that. I worked for them, and I did it at a studio somewhere close to the Atlanta airport is all I know. And they just flew me in, and I stayed one night at the airport and got up next day. They had a car waiting for me, took me to the studio. Then when I finished, got back at studio, went back to the airport and left. But they're doing Memphis, they're doing Florida, they're doing Mid Atlantic, they're doing WWF, they're doing Texas, they're doing Calgary with the Harts. They're doing that, and I don't know what else they're doing. I think they're actually doing Puerto Rico, except for that last show with Bruiser Brody on Vice. That may have cooked them with Puerto Rico working for him, because that series kind of indicted all of them down there. So they may be a little ticked off about that. But I think it's really going to be a really, really good series, enjoyable to watch. And instead of, bad endings, I think they have some stories that, are funny, and just things that happened about how it started and how it ended.
Yeah, I like the Dark Side of the Ring series because it was accessible. You did not have to be a big fan. It's the kind of thing you could sit there and watch with a non-fan, your partner, let's say,
Yep.
and they wouldn't walk out of the room, because it was all about the human interest stories that are universal, not just in wrestling.
Oh, it was good because you didn't have to be a fan, because they would start you on this story, and it's like watching a crime story. Well, this guy had did this, and they just bring you into it. And then before you know it, you're kind of invested into the story, and they will top the story off. They'll give you a finish to it, and then they'll go on, and next week they have a different story. I really enjoyed. I think they did Vice. I think they did it well. And now I'm looking, and I'm seeing there's a bunch of other shows saying the dark side of this and the dark side of that. I went, well, what the hell? And my guys, Evan and James, I think his name is. I mean, they started a run of that they get no credit for. But it's the dark side of automobile racing and the dark side of baseball umpiring. I didn't know it had a dark side, but they're telling me. And if it was baseball umpiring, I got to see what that is.
The dark side of monster trucks, where there's 28 Bigfoots, and it's all a big scandal. So Tales of the Territories is October 4th at 10 p.m. But before we go, because we actually could probably just talk about that for the entire hour, we've got many, many newses to talk about. I know there's something I brought your attention to recently that you've got something to say about, but for now we're going to be talking about Vince McMahon. Once again, WWE finally released their second quarterly financial statements of 2022 after delays owing to revising the books for the past several years to adjust for Vince McMahon NDA payments. Excuse me, I had to swallow then. WWE announced record profits for the quarter, bringing in $328 million. Now, final NDA payments look to be at $19.6 million, $5 million up from the known $14.6 million NDA payments, although there has been a suggestion that this extra $5 million could have been a charitable donation to the Donald Trump Foundation, which ended up actually being used to settle various lawsuits. At this point, we don't know. Before we discuss that, with the special investigation by WWE board and outside entities, which WWE has announced is substantially complete, that's a quote, cost the firm $1.7 million. WWE also notes that Vince and the McMahon family still own a controlling interest in the company despite his recent quote-unquote retirement.
Well, the main key of that is one name, Donald Trump. And the reason I think they're bringing him into it, and it could be true, they don't know. They're investigating it. But the media, I don't think will highlight that term, investigating, so much as it has been claimed like it's a fact. So they're saying that what they're saying is Vince wrote checks to the Donald Trump Foundation that didn't really go to the Donald Trump Foundation. That was really sent to those women to keep quiet. Is it a crime? I guess it is. I don't know. But the key to it again, Trump. Trump. And I don't want to get on a political rant here, but the media, they love to hate Trump because and I've said before, CNN and Fox and NBC and CBS and all of them, they all needed to sit down at the end of every year and write Donald Trump a check for $10 million because that's what he meant to their channel. Trump is clicks. That's people will listen to that. And if a non-fan is listening to, oh, WWF owner, he paid some women off. They don't care about that. Throw Trump's name in there. What the hell has he done now? And they're all over it because Trump, and basically what I'm trying to say is the media missed Donald Trump. They missed him. And even coming back now, they're covered him 24 hours a day, almost like he was president again. They're just covered him. Anything he does, of course, anything he does can have no good intent, can have no good meaning because he's like the devil personified, Satan doubled. And this whole thing about the WWE, like you said, it hasn't been proven, but they're investigating it. So now they're saying it's $19 million. And was it his money or was it the company's money? They're still debating that too. But if he was paid, hey, I'm not a lawyer. No, you're not either. But if he was paid through the company, did he pay the company back? That's what they're determining, right?
They don't seem to be that forthcoming with any answers whatsoever. Even analysts who are looking through this are just saying, so hang on, did Vince pay these women from his own money? Did he use company money and he's paying the company back? Or because I think in a previous statement that the WWE said that Vince was cutting a check back to the company, and why would he do that unless he used company money to pay the women off in the first place? It's very confusing.
Well, it's confusing to me. So, and I'm gonna tell a secret on myself. Yeah, I'm addicted to Trump myself. Anything I see about Trump and Vince McMahon, I'm going to read it, and I'm sure that some guy down in, say, Houston, Texas, he hates wrestling. He wouldn't go to it if you pulled a gun on him and made him go. But if he reads that in conjunction with Vince McMahon and Trump, he's going to read it. And the papers know this. The TV stations know this. And the person that, I talked a little earlier before we went on there about Trump derangement syndrome. It's real. Hell, I may be a part of it myself because I will read anything that has Trump's name on it because what's he up to now? To me, he may have a lot of vices and a lot of faults. I don't think trying to end democracy was one of them. I don't believe that. But a lot of the good things that he did were never mentioned at all. He did a lot of good stuff. He just had a big mouth. And if he just shut up half the time, because he gave his critics ammunition. I mean, it doesn't matter what he said, but they could pick each and every part or sentence or word. They could pick it apart and say it meant this and every word he said was worth 10 words to a critic. That's how productive he was.
This is so far out of left field, but there's a Welsh band called Manic Street Preachers. I think their last big hit in this country was 15 years, and it was called For the Love of Richard Nixon, and it was a song that only focused on the good things Richard Nixon did, like his war on cancer and opening diplomatic relations with China. I just thought that was such a funny sort of spin on how to weirdly get a pop hit out of it.
Well, this is what I think. This is the view from Dutch about WWE. I think they're getting it ready to sell because they're still making cuts on expenses. They're still cutting talent, and they're trying to get that profit margin up as high as they can. And I predicted this about, I don't know, a year ago. I said in 3 years, I think the McMahons will be completely divested of WWE, and it'll be totally publicly owned. Now, who will run it? I have no idea. Will they keep Triple H? I have no idea. Will they keep Stephanie? I have no idea. But they could because they know how to run it. But I think they're getting it ready to sell and go on the market. So even if you, I'm not I don't watch the lines on the stock market, but I think what's their stock worth today?
It's gone up further. It's 70 something. So in the few weeks since Vince has gone, it's gone up a sizable chunk, maybe 6, 7, 8%.
So they know something, or they think they know something that we don't know. So if you have, say, 10,000 shares and it goes up, it's gone up at least 20%, correct?
Well, the day before Vince McMahon, well, I'm sorry, it was the day off because they waited until the stock market closed for the weekend to announce Vince is leaving. It went from $65.92, jumped up to $71.43, and then today it's $73.60. So it's gone up. What's this according to? I mean, in the past month, it's gone up just over 15%.
Well, that's what I think. I think they're getting it ready to sell, and a lot of people don't believe that, but I do. Vince was WWE, and he was WWF, and with him gone, now it's a company, and I think they're getting it ready to put on the market, and just see. I don't know how they sell that stuff. I don't know. Maybe they just do a run on it, but and imagine if he owns 80% of the stock.
The McMahon family own 80% of the controlling voting rights with their special B grade stock.
Well, you can say, well, you can't make him sell it. Well, no, you can't. But I do think that Stephanie has a lot of influence with her father. I think she has more influence than the wife did, Linda. I think she has a lot more influence than Triple H, because I think Vince kind of hates Triple H sometimes. But he always loved his daughter. There's no doubt about that. And she loved her daddy. So I think if she talks to him, she's the key to it. She really is. And he's 76. And even though he's in great shape, I mean, nobody escapes Father Time. And I think that the clock is ticking on all of us, and it's especially clicking on Vince. But does the money mean anything to him? I don't think so. I think his legacy does. Mm-hmm. And I think that he would probably, and I expect one big last hurrah from Vince before it's all over, because that's the way he is. He wants to end it with a flourish. He wants to end it with them fireworks and a parade and champagne and popping the corks, and everybody's happy, because that's the way Vince has lived his life. He's had peaks and valleys, but his peaks, like his WrestleMania idea, turned out to be one of the greatest ideas in human history. Maybe. He's had how many of them? 38? Something
like that, yeah. They took the numbers off the WrestleManias after a while, so you couldn't really... I don't know why. It's like Super Bowl 40-odd, it gives that credence of credibility and history to it. And then Vince McMahon went the opposite way and started taking the numbers off WrestleMania.
So the numbers aren't... I didn't even know that. The numbers are off WrestleMania?
Well, I'll tell you for sure. 38 was this year. But for a few years, it was just WrestleMania Texas or something.
Okay.
Speaking of which, actually, this sort of leads us into what I was hoping to ask you next, is Vince McMahon. Now he's gone a few weeks. You've watched a couple of the WWE shows with him gone, and I'm sure while you were there between 2013, 2016, you'll have noticed or have been told not to say certain words or do certain things because it angers Vince McMahon, and some of them are really, really nonsensical, like you can't say fans or wrestlers or belt or, I mean, I wrote some more down. Always play to the hard camera. Always watching backstage. Like if you're watching a monitor backstage, you're almost like behind the TV watching it. So, just weird sort of setups like that. But what are the ones that stick out in your mind?
Well, one of the weirdest you say sticks out in my head was all of a sudden there's an interviewer there, and we're looking for, oh, there he is right there, just happens to be there, right? And she walks in the set. You're shooting down this hallway. The hallway is empty. I mean, you got all these thousands of people sitting out in the stands, and they're cheering, and they're loud, but all of a sudden that whole background is entirely vacant for some reason. Or you got two guys that like technicians or something, they're writing some stuff down, but they're way, way at the far. I don't know. It looks so out of context. But they never looked at it that way. One reason they do it that way is because they shoot it in the afternoon. I got that. But the fans don't get that. You should make it busy like it was like the show's going on. People are going to be running back and forth. And that was one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. Of course, I couldn't say anything about it. It is what it is. That's the way they do it. Okay, let's go. Give me my check. Let me go home, pay some bills. Another thing is a guy standing in the back all by himself, and he's looking at the monitor at an angle, and he's out there by himself, and he's just watching it standing there. I don't get that either. And I know what they're trying to convey is that he's there and he's paying attention, so he may be running into the ring. I got that. They're trying to draw the connection. It was in their physical appeal to it, the visual appeal to it was just off center. Now I think that's a Kevin Dunn. Addition there, but it didn't make any sense. And they've done all kind of. You couldn't say certain words like you said wrestler. No, don't say wrestler. Say entertainer or sports.
DQ. I apologize for interrupting you. DQ, non-title match, headshot, choke. Like some of the, yeah. I mean, I understand I understand where they're coming from with like choke because you want to appeal to kids, but still, I'm pretty sure kids know the word choke and what choke means. Not going to make them choke the brother or sister.
Oh, Vince took wrestling and tried to turn it so much into a form of sports entertainment. And he was trying to appeal to some of the stations who didn't want the violence. And he thought, well, let's just change the terminology. We won't call it violence. We'll call it sports entertainment. And if you really look at it, it has so very little wrestling on it. Now, I'm going back a month because when Vince was still in charge, and it's a show of entrances and music is what it is. Because just look at Roman Reigns going to the ring. Hell, it takes him 5 or 6 minutes to get to the ring. Now, that gives the announcers a lot of time to say stuff, but hell, you can't hear them. I can't, because either the crowd's loud or the levels are. I mean, you can't concentrate on what the crowd is saying. And then here he comes in and he holds it up, and then the Usos hold it up, and then Paul Heyman holds it up, and then they come down, then he stops, he looks around. That's already 3 minutes. He hadn't even got halfway to the ring. Then they go down, they go up the steps, they just take their time, and then he gets there, and you know what he's going to say? Acknowledge me. Or he says the name of the town. It gets a pop. And then he goes. And then he no sooner gets started, then here comes somebody. Here comes Brock, or here comes McIntyre, or whoever he's feuding with at the point. But people know this. I mean, let's do some action. They did start a match, I think, in progress. I think 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, a fight in the back, which is what I've been advocating for hell over 2 years. Start with some action and let's go from there. But I think they're so, and this still is Kevin Dunn. He's still in charge of all this. And I think habits are hard to break. So I think right now they have been a change in it, and a noticeable change. And I think we'll see more change as we go along. I think you'll see it on Raw first, then hit a transfer to Fox, he'd have transferred to SmackDown. And I do think that Triple H will make a difference, and I think he'll make a big difference.
I had another question about that, but that's an evergreen question I'm going to save for another time because we've got a million different bits of news to go through, and I expected more criticism for me saying Weekend at Bernie's with Ric Flair, but apparently everyone just agreed with me. And Ric Flair, I think, went on his podcast, and he said that he thought his retirement match was good. I saw it, and I had the exact opposite opinion. And he revealed that he also he also revealed that he passed out twice during the match, and he would explain. I mean, it would explain why he thought it was good because he was asleep for half of it.
Yeah, that's right.
And he also claims that he fell asleep because, passed out because he was dehydrated. It could happen to anyone.
Well, I think Conrad Thompson and Jeff Jarrett, they promoted this match as well as it could have been promoted because it made you want to see it. And that's what promotion is. It makes you want to see it. You don't know what you're going to see, but you know you were going to see his last match. But when it got time to actually put the mechanics of that match together, I think that's where Rick kind of ushered his way into it, because he looked, and if he says it's good, brother, I mean, the match was not good. And I think the people would have been happy just to see him walk to the ring, do a little bit, get out, and do the finish, because it was a tribute to Ric Flair's 50 years or whatever he contributed to the business. The match was literally horrible. I mean, you could tell he was blown. You thought he was going to die at one point. You looked at him and he looked out, and it wasn't a flattering look at all. And I think even Undertaker and Foley and Bret Hart, I think they were concerned about his health. They were concerned whether he was going to make it out of that ring alive. But I didn't like the match. I didn't like the finish. Him passing out was not a flattering look. And I don't think the fans wanted to see him that way either, because that's not a good picture to leave of a man who's contributed so much to professional wrestling. My viewpoint.
With Ric Flair and his, I think what most people will say is his actual retirement match, if I can say it, with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania, the 2008 one, I think. And he publicly said that he didn't like his own performance in that, despite the fact that match had incredible drama, even though you knew he was going to lose. And I remember on an interview many years ago, probably with kayfabe commentaries, your style of booking was promise something for a big event and then give it to them. I mean, even give them the finish, basically. Tell me you will see Ric Flair retire with this match and then give it to them.
Yeah. And I think in his first match, he did. They gave it to him. Even though the match could have been 5 times better, still you knew that he wasn't going to win his last match. I mean, that is a little bit different, because if he won his last match, then what's going to keep him from having another one? This is it, so he has to lose it. But you promise a big event, and then all of a sudden you deliver that big event and that big pop and that big chair. Everybody leaves contented, but yet they're still invested into what's next. I mean, you can't end that in a big screw job or this and a bunch of people running in. That disgusts people that paid for a ticket. And if they did that to me and I bought a ticket, I said, screw this. I'm not coming back to this. It's bullshit. They don't even know how to tell a story, nor do they know how to continue a story that shouldn't have been continued. But anyway, I think Rick, was it his last match? He said it was. But yet, the week after his retirement match, he ended up in Puerto Rico with Andrade in his corner. And him and, of course, Carlos Colon is their their big star for 50 fucking years. He's been down. They came face to face and they swapped some punches, which I swear to God, a 5-year-old kid could have looked better, a lot better. It was embarrassing. It really was. So I'm going to tell Rick, stop. Just show up. Don't do anything physical. I mean, he don't look that great now. If you just look at him, he looks damn beat up. But the thing is, he is beat up because this road, even if you haven't taken one bump, the road will beat you up. If you go and you go and you go, and eventually, I mean, it just, even if you don't get into a ring, you're beat up from the traveling. But I don't know what the question was now, but I think Rick should stop now. Don't ever talk about another retirement match. Of course, there will be others, I think. I still think that as soon as somebody shows the money, and he'll do it again. Still, I don't even doubt that when he dies, he may die in the ring. I think that's where he wants to die, because that's where he spent most of the time. I think he truly loves the wrestling business. He truly loves performing. He truly loves to be in front of people. But at some point in your life, in your career, you have to give it up. You got to go home. And that's what he should have done probably a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. We are not going to take it home yet, I'm afraid. We've got quite a lot more news to go through. And something that I brought your attention to, because I don't know how it got to my attention because I wasn't searching for it. Jon Moxley versus Effy. Effy I've never heard of before from the recent GCW Homecoming Party 1. I sent you the highlights, or as I called them, lowlights, and you tell me what you saw in this 45-second collection of whatever that was.
Are you going to show it?
No. I mean, I can do.
You're not? Well, a lot of people may not be familiar with this.
Okay, well, give me 1 minute and I'll put it up.
And they will have a reaction and see if my reaction matched theirs.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm back. Oh, and so is Dutch. We're going to watch this together. And here it is. Do you tell me when you want me to pause?
Fans encouraging Effy. Referee checking the arm. He's still...
Oh, wait a minute. What's happening now?
Wait a minute.
The action speaks for itself.
Effy's been choked out.
You can pause it now.
Okay, then. So what we have is Jon Moxley putting Effy into a sleeper and Effy rubbing his cheesy cock for some reason.
Oh, my God.
He looks like he smells. I can only imagine he's not had a wash in a while.
Well... okay, is the camera back on me now?
Oh, yeah, the camera's back on you. So, well, it's on both of us, actually, but yes, carry on.
Okay, so I don't know where I saw this, and I saw it, and there's more to this if you go and look for it. Mm. He puts him in a sleeper, and then he puts his hands in his own trunks, and he looks like he's masturbating to me. And I'm thinking, and then he throws up with some substance. So use your own mind about that. Mm-hmm. Then he makes a big comeback on Moxley, and he's throwing the shittiest looking punches I've ever seen. You know, and
well,
then Moxley...
let's watch them, in fact. Let's watch those shitty fucking punches.
Effy with the big boot in the corner, and now it's time to take Mox under the rainbow.
So there's some sort of headlock takeover thing.
Effy got caught.
And here are the punches.
Firing away on Moxley.
Shot after
they're horrible.
Effy trying to bring home the goal.
Okay, so before we get to the kiss, which is the big controversy apparently, let's just talk about those punches. They are astonishing.
They are. But one thing about it, the punches are really drowned out on this next move you're seeing right now, and is a kiss between Jon Moxley and Effy in a wrestling ring. Where was this match at? Where was it?
Some promotion, a promotion called Game Changer Wrestling.
Okay.
And here it is.
And there it is. He kisses him. And my thought is, my thought is why? Why even being this match? To me, I don't know why Moxley agreed to that. If he said, okay, Dutch, I'm going to be punching you and punching and punching, all of a sudden you block one and just plant a big, deep kiss on me. I said, no, I'll plant a big fat boot in your ass is what I'll plant. Because he looks, if I was gay, I damn sure wouldn't be kissing that guy. I mean, but I'm thinking, and everybody that goes to his shows, they're aware of the fact that he's gay. There's nothing to that. But to me, is they really violate my space as a viewer, because I can accept that you're gay. I just don't want to see you kiss another guy. And what if I'd have brought a kid with me? And I don't know if that even affects them anymore. They see so much stuff anyway. But I don't understand even the need for this in there, unless they just say, hey, let's make history. Let's be like show the big kiss, and we'll get a lot of clicks on it, which they will. They'll get a lot on it. But me personally, I didn't like it. If I had promoted that show, I'd have fired both of them when they come back, because they should have cleared that with me. I just didn't like it at all. Now, I think we run into something here that extends beyond wrestling. I think one's gay, one apparently isn't, or could be now. I don't know. He may have liked the kiss. I don't know. But I think that's part of the woke generation, because now, it's all fine. Well, what is next? The actual sex act in the middle of the ring? They almost got there. So, and I think it's like they want Jon Moxley can now be woke, I guess, showing people that they're part of the LGBTQ, TRY. Just keep adding letters to the community. That's fine. But does this help their cause? I don't think it helps their cause, whatever their cause is. But let's just go down to say, I didn't like it. Would I book it again? No, that would have been the last time I'd have booked it. And it'd been the last time I'd have used any of those two guys. Because I think Effy owns that. He owns that federation, doesn't he?
You tell me. I've never heard of that.
I don't know. I don't know who owns it. But I've heard Game Changer. So, but at least they're staying with the theme of their promotion, Game Changer. I don't know how much it will change the game, but I don't know how that helps wrestling at all. I really don't.
I've got something that bugs me about it, apart from the fact that I wasn't sort of particularly amazed to watch it, and I thought, well, that's really not a great thing for a wrestling match. I'm trying to choose my words very carefully. But here's something, is that if you criticize it, we're in 2022, everybody will jump down your throat and say, well, if you didn't like it, you must be homophobic. It's like, well, no, of course not. But do you know what I mean? It's like, now it's because it involves a kiss between two men, you cannot criticize it lest you are called many, many names and many accusations are thrown at you.
Well, I don't give a shit. I don't like two guys kissing it. And it was like, you're watching a golf tournament, right? Now, tell me this. You're watching a golf tournament, and all of a sudden one golfer looks at the other, and the other looks at him, and oh my God, they're just overcome with passion. And they kiss right there on the 18th hole. I mean, how does that help the game of golf? It has nothing to do with it. So you mean all these sportscasters, they'd say, well, they kissed on the 18th green, and we'll be back in a moment. They got to say something about it. So, hey, I don't mind anybody being gay. I don't. Don't intrude on my space and think that I may enjoy watching two men kiss, because I don't like that. And if they can consider that homophobic, then I'm homophobic. I don't care. So, but I don't know the spot for it, other than it is to push a certain agenda. And whether they'll get that, I don't know. I think they hurt their cause more than they helped their cause there. So,
Right, we'll move on to some more news then. The death of Judo Gene LaBelle. I don't think you ever went to the West Coast, did you? Never in LA, you never in San Francisco, you never in Portland. Did you ever have a run-in with Judo?
No, I never met him. I heard about him. He was a tough guy. Nobody messed with him. Never heard one bad thing about him. So when you go through a career in wrestling and nobody says anything kind of derogatory about you, you're a pretty good guy. And I think him being good guy is because he could back up what he said. I don't think he was a smart ass. He wasn't a bully. He was a decent man and was a great, great wrestler. And judo he excelled in judo and I've heard a lot of, I haven't even heard a lot of wild stories about him. So basically, I think he was just a straight up good guy and people liked him.
Well, with wild stories, there's a very famous one where I think he got put up for murder. There was him and somebody else didn't like a third person who was messing around with their business, and he was the getaway driver. This is Judo Gene LaBelle. He was the getaway driver for the other guy who ended up killing this mutual enemy back in the 70s, and he ended up, even as the getaway driver, he got away from it scot-free. As far as his wrestling goes, I believe he was never that into professional wrestling, and because he owned a stake, like a 10% stake into the LA Hollywood territory, he ended up being installed more or less as the backstage interviewer guy. And then when he got back in the ring in the dying days of the territory, he was terrible. He was like 50 odd as well.
Well, he had a move, and guys still talk about it. It's called what was that movie called?
The Sugar Hold.
I've had it explained to me and shown to me, because those old shooters in England, John Foley, and even Tony Charles, some of those guys, they knew how to shoot because they had to, because they weren't very overly big guys. So they had to know how to defend themselves. In case they got in a ring with an American big guy who wanted to rough him up, they could just take him down and literally make him cry. But this sugar hold they talk about is a legit hold. And John Foley told me, and he's from Wigan in England, famous for the shooters that came out of there. And I think I sent you a clip on the sugar hold being applied. Mm-hmm. You're just stretching the guy out like this, and you're turning him in such a way. John Foley told me he pulled one guy's shoulder out of its socket. So when you do that in just a hold, and literally you could almost kill a guy in that hold and nothing he could do about it, because he's immobilized. You just got him tied up in such a way. But that the sugar hold, when somebody used to say he put him into sugar or he sugared him, that means he rendered him useless to any other activity for the next day or so, because the sugar hold was a real hold, and you'd have to see it put on to really understand it. I could never put it on because I was never an amateur wrestler, but I do know that it has been put on me, but very lightly. And this is how the old timers used to do me. They say, hey, that's where they talk. Yeah, you don't know what they were saying, but they would like laugh in between. A lot of English guys. Hey, let's show this. And then you say, I got it. And he said, hey, I'm just trying to show you, lady. And then I've left the ring a lot of times with an English wrestler, glad to get out. And that's why I always made friends with the British guys, because they all knew how to just rip you apart. But they're good guys, but I always got along with them because I didn't want to be put in that sugar hold again.
Fine advice. We've got a few more things that we should move away from this podcast and live our lives for another week. Let me see what I'm going to ask you. We've got stuff about Killer Kross. We've got stuff about Sasha Banks. Something. Do you know what? I will ask you about Killer Kross. He debuted or re-debuted Karrion Kross a couple of weeks ago. I don't know how much you've seen of him, but your impressions of him and his chances as what's been described as the now second in command heel on the SmackDown side.
Well, I think what they did with the first time I saw him, that's when he had his hourglass. But what I saw was they strapped a rocket to his ass. But this guy's going straight up, because that's a pretty strong entrance that they used on him and taking out McIntyre. Now, I'm a week late because I missed SmackDown last week because I didn't have COVID. I didn't know what I had. Whatever I had kicked my ass, but I didn't watch it. And sometimes it does you good to get away from the product instead of watching it every week. Like, you can miss it 1 week. But I think Karrion Kross, I'm not that familiar with him, which I think in my case is probably a good thing, because now I'm not seeing the old Karrion Kross. I'm not seeing actually when they brought him back and realized they'd made a mistake and jacked him around. So all that is gone out of my memory. The deal is, it's not gone from the fans' memory, and they're the judges of this. But I think he's going to do great. So he's a big guy, and he looks great, and he's got the girl. So, I mean, there's so many things they can do with that, because he has a story that basically writes itself, and that's what you're looking for. When the writer looks at you and you got a story that has yet to be told, you don't have to look at you long. Don't have to look at that guy long, because it's going to tell itself. And the faster it makes it to TV, the better for everybody, I think. I think Triple H will make a big, big difference. And we'll see that difference on Raw before we'll see it on SmackDown, because you have two different companies, media companies, and they may not have the same view on wrestling as, say, the USA channel, but Raw, and that's a Fox channel. Raw's on what?
Raw's on USA.
USA, okay. And SmackDown's on Fox. But I think you see it on Raw first and see how it works, and they'll bring it across. Slowly, more slowly than they're going to do it on Raw.
So we've got someone with, a fairly dark entrance, and you, just so people know this, I write the lion's share of the script, send it over to Dutch, and Dutch comes back with me with a couple of ideas he wants to mention as well. And Dutch mentioned to me that a lot of people recently, these last couple of weeks, have been asking your opinion on when Bray Wyatt's coming back. And what do you think about Bray Wyatt, and will he come back? Are you interested at all in him coming back?
Nothing against Bray Wyatt, but
he's a nice guy. But
yeah, he's a nice guy. But now here comes the slam. But it's not a slam. Bray Wyatt just doesn't interest me as the Fiend or as Bray Wyatt. And I've said this before, and I may have said it here. He did nothing that made me want to boo him. Nothing. He just went out there and put his hold on and beat him. So what is to dislike about that? I don't know why that's so hard to understand. I don't know why. And a few times they had the other two guys hop in there and they beat somebody up. Yeah, that's all fine and good. But Bray Wyatt as a standalone heel, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. And then when he come back as the Fiend, the same thing. He didn't change his work. He just put a mask on, but nothing changed. So what makes me want to dislike this guy? Say, The Miz, at least you dislike The Miz because he's a smart ass and you want to slap the shit out of him yourself. That's good. That's good heat. But the thing with the Fiend looks like a tough guy. And I could not get up there and, fans don't want to take him on. But when he would go to the ring, when I'd watch him, boo him for what? He hadn't done nothing. Cheer him for what? For what? See, he was the kind of the biggest heel they had at one point, but yet there was no cheer. There was no boo factor there. So if they bring him back or not, that's their decision. Do I care? I don't give a crap one way or the other. I hope it's good. I think what happened at the end was I think his contract was too big to justify his existence. And I can see that. If I'd have walked in there, the head of WWE, and looked down, Bray Wyatt, $5 million, I say, for what? And now I'm completely missing his merchandise sales. See what I mean? Because all that's added in. All that's added into that money. They don't give you $5 million just to sell tickets. They give you, and all that is added in. All your merchandise sales and all that stuff is added in. But still, as a fan, just watching him, I don't care one way or the other whether he comes back or stays gone.
I can imagine Vince McMahon say $5 million. Do you know how many women I can pay off with $5 million?
Yeah, I could shut up at least 2 or 3 of them. God damn you, Bray Wyatt. You've messed me up. You gotta go.
Do you remember who you told me, or you messaged me and said, do you know who they should bring back? And do you remember who you said?
I said Damien Sandow.
You did indeed.
Damien Sandow, to me, very, very talented. And he's funny, can talk. He's the one you can put in any role and just have him study it, and he'll make it work. I mean, a writer couldn't tell him how to do it, but he could get, and what he does, I know him pretty well. He gets into the character, but there's a little bit of Damien in there too. So, and he makes it work. Damien Sandow is, when he was the Miz's double, It was hilarious. It didn't make a damn bit of sense, but you could see what he was trying to do. Instead of the sensibility of what he was doing, overcame. I mean, what he was doing overcame the sensibility of it, because it was stupid, but it was Sandow, so he could do that stuff. But they should bring him back, because they could put do so many things with him. I think a talk show with him would be great, because he's good at it. He's actually funny. He's an actor too. So I don't think they can miss with Sandow.
It's funny that you mentioned right at the beginning he can do anything. Now, I'm going to coin a phrase here. Utility player syndrome. Somebody talented enough to do anything. Almost like a Lance Storm who can turn his hand to, maybe not comedy, but, who can do anything in the ring, can wrestle with anyone. And then you sort of get pegged as that person who could fit anywhere on the board, rather than someone who may be more limited and they're sort of channeled more directly, if I've made sense there.
So what he's a utility player, and a very good one too.
Exactly, but he's too talented in too many different roles, so he gets moved from role to role to role. If you know what I'm saying.
Well, if you had somebody to produce him, and kind of, that's not on him, that's on creative. Because you can't take a character that could get over in a certain role and all of a sudden shoot him to something else, then shoot him to something else, then shoot him to something else. Now he just becomes, just a manifestation of all those things you put together, which none of them really clicked. I mean, to the extent that it could have, because they got rid of it too soon. That's not on the talent. That's on the creative. But if they give him something and let him help create it, it'll be something to remember. And I think to get something over, you can't change it every 3 months. You got to go at least 6 to 9 months with it, and then slowly move him to something else or put him in a different role and let him take that way. I think if I was on creative, I say, Sandow, this is what I want to do with you. And I said, I want you to take it, go home with it. I want you to marry it for the next 2 weeks, and I want you to come back and tell me what you think. And he would come back with something that would surprise them. Now, a lot of this stuff, because he is so creative, he's maybe over the horizon a little bit, but just pull it back some, and there's something you can use. But I would be thrilled if, and I think Triple H likes him. I think if Triple H or WWE brings him back, Triple H will like that guy because he already likes him anyway. I don't know why they got rid of him.
Creative had nothing for him. That's probably the excuse they give everybody, isn't it?
Oh, that's the excuse. We have nothing for you. I said, well, God, won't you goddamn think a little bit? But then they get mad at you because then you call them a bunch of morons, which is basically not what they are, but they're lazy. They are lazy. See, if you sit around the table with 6 people, 8 people, and it's hard to be energetic and try to give them this idea that will work. But if the third guy, I don't know, this, that, and you get this. You get the naysayers on down the line. We got to do this and this, this. I don't hear that. I told a creative team one time, I said, I don't want to hear reasons why it won't work. And I said, I want to hear one reason it will work. That's what I want you to come up with right now. And they'd never heard that before. So they come up with something that would work. I said, don't overthink it. Don't overdo it. Don't overproduce it. Let's put it out there and see how it's received. And then we'll go from there.
So here's an example I just thought of now is, let's say the dying days of USWA, and Flex Kavana, The Rock, is about to be called away. They've got 2 days worth of notice, and it's like necessity is the mother of invention. And Jerry Lawler came up with a great idea to get him out of the territory in 1 day, essentially. And is WWE just the complete opposite? They've got all the wrestlers in the world that they need, all the creative minds in the world, and there's just no sort of impetus to think of something for somebody all the time.
Well, first, even if you did think of something, a good thing, it would have to go in front of Vince back in those days. And Vince was seeing nothing. Vince has basically seen nothing except the end of a check for the last 4 years, 5 years. And if he doesn't see it, it doesn't go. That's why I'm saying we're going to see a difference, because now Triple H is the lens. Now he's seeing it through his lens, and his lens is a lot clearer and more current than what Vince's was. So as far as Jerry Lawler determining why we don't see Flex Kavana for the next couple of weeks, he just invented it on, I swear to God, it was his first thought that came to his head. Well, we just do this, bam, he's gone. That's the reason. Because that's the way reasons happen. Well, he had a death in the family. Okay. Everybody can accept that. Easy. You don't have to worry about it. He's gone. Will he be back? Maybe. Who knows?
I think we've got maybe time for 1 or 2 more questions, and we'll call it a day on this podcast. And I will ask you, Mickie James tweeted on August the 8th in response to a fan if she was going to be Oscar's, am I pronouncing it right? Oscar's partner in the women's tag title tournament. Mickie James replies, no, I feel I'm done with wrestling. Thoughts on Mickie James now she's apparently announced her retirement?
I always remember this about pro wrestling. Compare them to regular people. When you hear regular people talk, you listen, you're sitting there, you're listening, and you're listening. You're waiting for a lie to drop out that you can call them on. But with wrestlers talking, they're talking and talking and talking. You're waiting for the truth to drop out sometime, because that's just the way they talk. So I think Mickie James, this is one or two things. There might be some truth in it, but I doubt it. Or she was probably just bored one day and said, well, I need, that deal they do on TikTok. I want to see who loves me on social media, that song they play all the time. That's what she wanted to do. I'll just put this out there and see who responds to it and see what I get back. And she'll put a bullshit tweet out and get 100 replies. Well, that's what she wants. That reaffirms her ability that people are still paying attention to her, that she's still relevant. So Is it her last match? Hey, Ric Flair said it was his last match too. And is she done in wrestling? Nah, well, see, you don't ever get out of wrestling. You don't just get out of it. It's like getting out of acting. I mean, how do you get out of acting if somebody will cast you in another movie? You're not out of wrestling. You're still there. You're standby. And if somebody wants to run a show, and what's the girl's your name you were talking about? What's your
Mickey
name?
James.
Oh, Mickey. Hey, Mickey, can you make the show on the 16th? I'll be there. That's it. And she's back in wrestling. And then you say, well, I thought you were getting out of wrestling. Well, I was, then I got back in. I mean, it's that cryptic tweet that means nothing. You can put any meaning to it whatsoever. I mean, how is she going to make money out of wrestling? What other business is she in?
She probably has a podcast like everybody else, I suppose. I've no idea.
Yeah, well, she may have it. But having a podcast and actually doing it, I mean, you might as well go ahead and do it and then talk about it on your podcast. She can make her own content. She can create her own material for her podcast. So anyway, but I put no faith in that at all.
I didn't actually research this. Did you ever produce her, write for her? Did you ever work with her in any way?
No, I never did.
So there was no crossover in TNA or even when it was Impact in 2017?
I didn't deal with her.
No?
I never. This is what I did in TNA. I went in there and they gave me a job and they wanted to make me the boss of the creative. And I said, yeah, well, maybe. But I mean, the job descriptions were like, they weren't defined. I was on creative, but I gave a couple of ideas one time, and the guys did this. And I love these guys. I mean, this is what I call a clash of philosophies. Well, they didn't see it the same way I saw it, which is fine. But when I would put something out there, then I would hear, well, that's good, but okay, which I mean, they weren't going to take it. And then I put something else out there, I think the next day. Well, that's all. Well, they didn't discuss it. So I said, well, I see how this is going. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit in on creative. I'm really not going to contribute that much because they're not going to take it anyway. And I would go to the show. I might produce a segment or two, or maybe one, and then go sit in catering. And that's what I did. So when he's raising hell about something, oh my God, this, did you see that? Blah, blah, blah. Never got involved in it. I sat on the outside and I picked up my check for a year. And then finally the guy called me. I knew it was coming. He said, and as friendly as he could be, he said, well, Dutch, we're just going to have to like finish you up. And he paused and I went, okay. And it surprised him, like, what, you don't have anything to say? I said, no. What is that? Because I knew it was coming. So I said, I don't want to raise hell and cuss and carry on. What difference does that make? Actually, I kind of wanted to leave myself. I wanted to give my notice myself, but I didn't. So he finished me up and he thanked me and I thanked him and we split. That's the way it was. Because you get hired in wrestling, you get hired to get fired, especially in a booker's job. Because if you don't turn immediate results in at least 3 months, and if you can't turn results in 3 months, you need to be fired anyway. And I hate the word fired. You need to be
either endeavored
or moved or, but
released, let go.
See, fired to me means it was like there was some bad feelings with it if you fired somebody. I always hated the word fired. But they let me go and I left and I wished them luck and I still wish them luck.
Discontinued.
Yes, to further notice.
I think we've got time very quickly for one more question. The amount of script writing I do, I mean, Dutch, I'm sure, despairs of me. The amount of questions I send him, we never get to about like a third of them. I'll come to probably this one just because I was interested, is Mark Henry recently addressed why he no longer wrestles, saying, and quote, "I got nerve damage is why I don't wrestle. In my back, and I'm really going to balls this one up, sacroiliac joint." He described his body periodically shutting down and sometimes having to use a wheelchair to get about in airports. Mark Henry thoughts, because I suppose you would have worked with him during the Zeb Colter run, and also he debuted in around mid-1996 when you were in the WWF, when you were still in the WWF. So yep. Any memories of, let's say, a young Mark Henry when he first came in?
Well, I heard his reputation, Olympic lifter, except he never competed at the Olympics. He was hurt or
I think he came happened. like 14th or something. I think he did one lift and was disqualified, or I'd have to look in.
Well, I don't think he may have done one lift, but he never was even close to winning it. I think he got hurt on the lift, is what I think. But strong guy, nice guy, did not understand very much about pro wrestling. And he was a big guy. And his reasons he doesn't wrestle now, one reason he doesn't wrestle now, and I can accept the injury and the sciatic nerve. You ever had a sciatic nerve trouble?
Very mildly compared to what this is, yeah.
Oh, well, it is painful. You cannot walk. You can't. The pain's too much. And if you hurt that, if it happens to you in the ring, you might as well just quit right then. Because I've had it to me happen in the ring. I just rolled out and told the guy I can't go. But the announcer didn't get him, said, "Dutch is quitting because his sciatic nerve hurts like a son of a bitch." They never announced it that way. But I can see that. Another thing, he's not thinking about wrestling because he doesn't have to. Saved his money. He's good with his money. So if he never wrestles, it draws another probably check in his life, he's still set, which I applaud him for that. Because the smart wrestlers do that. Save your money. I don't care what spot you're on. You could be first match your whole life. But if you save your money and you watch your money, you can actually retire on that. That's what the old timers, tell me. It's save your money, kid. Save your money.
I think that's a good time as any to shut down the podcast, especially because I think when you talked into the microphone, you altered the volume of it. So now you're very quiet. So I will...
Oh, you can't hear me now?
No, I can hear you now. It just like lowered it about 20%. So I thought, well, this is a perfect time as any to sort of shut down the podcast. So I will do some plugs, and once again, I'll do in reverse order because that's the way the books are piled. My books first: The Rock, the People's Champion, available at Amazon. Owen Hart, King of Pranks, available from Amazon. And, of course, the two greatest books available on Amazon right now, both by Dutch, Tales from a Dirt Road and The World According to Dutch. The website's coming soon. And yes,
I am in New Jersey tonight.
I never even asked. I'm sorry, yeah. So this is coming out on Friday, August 19th, and you're going to be in New Jersey 19th and 20th.
Right. So... you have it in front of you where I'm at tonight.
Oh, I did have it in front of me, and then I don't. I don't.
You don't have it in front of you?
No, I even closed the little website browser to find that Effy video from before, so it's completely disappeared. I can find out for you if you give me 20 seconds.
All right, let's do that.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'll pause. Okay,
you see
now
that on there?
Yeah, I'm back now. So we've got the August 19th. Please let it be. Yes, it is the 19th. You are in Butler, New Jersey, St. Anthony of Padua Gym and ISPW Wrestling. And on the 20th, I've got the other one, if it loads, August 20th, 33 Baldwin Road, Parsippany, New Jersey, the asylumwrestlingstore.com. Is that just a signing?
Yes. Don't expect me to wrestle. I mean, if it was 20 years ago, don't expect me to wrestle then either, because I might have gotten into the ring, but I wasn't going to do a lot of wrestling anyway. But anyway, that's where I am tonight, and I'm going right now to the airport, getting on a plane and going. So.
Absolutely. So one more thing to say is, or two more things actually. If you enjoy this podcast, please go to Apple Podcasts or iTunes and give us 5 stars. If you didn't, keep your opinions to yourself. And on YouTube, Story Time with Dutch Mantell. We are no longer on the WSI YouTube channel. Dutch Mantell has his own channel, Storytime with Dutch Mantell. The links will be in this podcast description. It'll be in every description that you consume this media. But for now, thank you very much for watching or viewing or listening or however you consume this show as you normally do. And thank you, Dutch, for entertaining us once again.
Oh, thank you very much. Hey, fans, you in New Jersey, I'll see you tonight. We, the people.